Well, good morning, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome in for another exciting Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants broadcast. If you're joining us for the first time, as quite a few of you are, we are all about bringing conservation, adventure, and science into classrooms around the world. And everything we do goes through our YouTube channel. So if you want to check out like 4,000 broadcasts featuring the coolest scientists and explorers on planet Earth, you can head to our channel and do just that. Now, before I dive in with our topic and exciting person du jour, I want to note we do have a Kahoot today. So between our talk and our question period, we are going to have a little 4-question quiz, test your understanding, have a little bit of fun. So if you want to pull up this game pin, we'll be getting to that in about 20-25 minutes. Now, of all the days you could have joined us, I'm so happy you're here today. We are in the home stretch of our year. We've got about 25 programs to do before we wrap up and take a breather over the summer until next September, joining you all again. But we're starting off this week in style with someone that we brought on just a few months back and we wanted to bring back for a special encore. And that is Dr. Juliet Turner. So she is an insect specialist, one of my very favorite topics, one that we don't get to talk about here much at Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. And so today we are going to dive into insect societies around the world, some of the weirdest, coolest, most amazing bugs on planet Earth, and some of the special adaptations they have to survive. And so without further ado, joining us in sweltering 32-degree, no air conditioning United Kingdom, Juliet, welcome back to the broadcast and take us away.
Thanks so much. Hi, everyone. It's great to be here again. I hope you're all having a great day so far. I can't see you, and as Jesse said, I am probably going to melt at some point in this talk, but fingers not that happens.
Fingers crossed. No, we hope you survive till the end of the broadcast. We really like you, so we wish you well.
Thank you. Yeah, so as Jesse said, I'm Juliet, and I currently work as a pollinator ecologist, but I recently completed my PhD in evolutionary biology. So I've been working in a few different areas of biology, but what unites all of my work is insects, because I love insects a huge amount, and I always have done since I was really small. And I think that what I really like about them, the reason I like them so much, is because they're so diverse. And so see, these are some of the pictures I've taken over the last few years, and I've taken a lot more than this, I can tell you. But insects are really diverse. They come in all different shapes and colors and sizes, and they have all kinds of different lifestyles too. And so one way in which their lifestyles vary, and what I looked at for my PhD, is social behavior. So, well, I should have said first that some people think there might be as many as 10 million different species of insect in the world. And so whenever you're doing research on insects, especially the kind of research I was doing in my PhD, there's a lot of different species to cover. So there's a lot of work to do. So the topic of my PhD was social behavior and why it varies in insects. Why are some of them social and some of them are solitary? So many insects don't have social behavior, and you can think of things like butterflies or moths. These are not considered to have social behavior. And although they do have some interactions between different individuals, so in butterflies, these interactions will be mating or fighting. And not many people know this about butterflies, but they're actually really aggressive. People think butterflies are really gentle, peaceful things. They're not. If you spend any time watching butterflies, you'll see that they spend a huge amount of their time fighting and defending their territories. So they do have some interactions between each other, but these are not prolonged, ongoing relationships. And so these are not considered to be social insects. But there are some insects that do have ongoing, prolonged relationships with each other. So some of these live with their families, and these kind of insects, when they hatch from their eggs, they find themselves surrounded by their siblings, their brothers and their sisters, and maybe one or both of their parents too. And in some cases, the parents actually stay with their offspring, with their babies, and they look after them and they feed them and they protect them and they keep them safe and healthy. And in some cases, like the insect on the bottom right, I don't know if you know what this is. This is an earwig. They don't really live in your ears. This is a myth. But they're really good mothers. They're really good, hardworking single mothers. And this is the mother here, the big one, and all the little ones around her are her children. And so she stays with them for a long time. She takes really good care of them. And there are a few types of insect that have female-only parental care, so only the mothers look after the babies. There are some that have both parents looking after them. So the one in the bottom left, this is called a burying beetle. And these have really elaborate, complicated care for their children, for their offspring. And they provide them with food and they provide them with medicine, and both parents look after them for a long time. And there are a few kinds of insects that have male-only parental care, so just the dad looks after the children, but this is quite unusual. But the key thing about all of these types of insects are that when the children grow up, when they become adults, they then leave the nest and they go and do their own thing and lead their own lives, and they don't have further interactions with their family. And so we consider these to be subsocial, which means they're kind of social, but not fully social. So it's a kind of temporary social relationship. But there are other types of insect that when the offspring, when the babies grow up, they don't want to leave the nests. And so they stay with their parents, often for their whole lives, and they stay there and they help with the chores around their house. They help with nest building and maintenance, and they even help raise their younger siblings. And so this is how you end up with groups and colonies of insects. If you've ever seen a wasp's nest or a beehive, this is usually how they form. Usually it starts as one mother and then her children, and then she has younger children, and the older children look after the first ones, and they can grow and grow and grow like this. And because some insects can lay a ridiculous number of eggs, sometimes tens of thousands in a day, you can fact check me on that number, but I'm pretty sure that's true. Certainly in the thousands, you can get enormous colonies of insects. So this is a leafcutter ant colony. These are found in Central and South America, and these can have 10 million ants in a single nest. And remember, this is a family group. These are all daughters of one queen. And you can see just how big the nest is by how small the human researchers look in comparison to it. So usually all of this would be hidden beneath the soil, but they're excavating it. So these nests are underground. Usually you wouldn't see any of this. You'd see maybe the little entrances to the burrows in the top of the soil. But here you can see the structure really well. And so leafcutter ants are an example of a huge, huge family group. And if you look at the picture in the top right, you often see pictures like this of leafcutter ants, and this is where they get their name, leafcutter. People often think that they're collecting the leaves because they eat them, but actually what they do is much cooler. So if you look closely at this picture and you see these, I don't know if you can see the cursor, but if you see these round looking things,
yeah,
these are actually hollow chambers. These are like rooms of their, imagine this is like a palace. So each one of these is a room, and inside these rooms is where they grow a fungus, so like a mushroom, and they grow lots and lots of this, and they actually feed the leaves to this fungus, and that's what the fungus grows on. And then the ants eat the fungus rather than the leaves, and it's much more nutritious, and it's a really good, stable and reliable food source that can support these huge colonies of ants. And humans like to think that we're really special, and one of the reasons that we think we're so special is because we have agriculture, which was an amazing innovation for us, and it allowed us to grow really big societies. But actually, ants invented agriculture millions of years before we did, and I don't think they get enough credit for that personally. But yeah, it works in exactly the same way. So they have these farming systems that allows them to have these huge, complex civilizations, basically. And it's not even just ants that do this. So just a warning, I'm going to talk about ants a lot in this talk because a lot of my work was on ants, but I will throw in some other insects too. Oh, yeah, here's a better picture of the fungus that they're farming. This is what's in the chambers underground in their nest. you can see them carefully feeding the pieces of leaf to this fungus. So yeah, it's not just ants that do this. There are also completely independent evolutions of this behavior in other types of insects. So it's evolved multiple times. And these here are termites. And people often think that termites are similar to ants, maybe closely related, but they're not at all. What termites actually are is a type of cockroach. They don't look like it. This is a termite on the left, but they are just a type of really small, hypersocial cockroach. And so they're also, some of them also farm fungus underground in these huge underground cities that they build. And there's a type of beetle that farms fungus too, and not many people know about these, even biologists, biologists who work on social insects. People don't give these beetles much appreciation. So I'm always trying to mention them and give them the appreciation that they deserve. But one of the reasons that these fungus farming beetles, not much is known about them, is because they live inside living trees. And so if you want to study their societies and look at what's going on in their colonies, it's really hard to do because you'd have to chop the tree down. And then, of course, you would kill the tree. And in scientific studies, you want lots of replicates, which means you want lots and lots of the same thing to look at and compare. But in this case, you'd have to chop down so many trees, you'd basically be deforesting the entire forest. And if you chop down a tree, these beetles are not going to be behaving in the way that's natural to them because you've disturbed their environment and you've disrupted their nest. So it's really hard to know what they get up to. But there has been a bit of a breakthrough with them recently. A group has discovered how to cultivate and keep them in captivity. And so they can now grow them and breed them without the living trees. And this means that we might actually be able to study their behavior better for the first time. So I'm really excited to see what kind of things we learn about them now that we can do that. And it's not just fungus that insects farm. If you have a garden, you may have seen an infestation of what are called aphids. These are really small, soft-bodied insects, and they live on the stems of plants like roses. And gardeners don't like them very much because they drink the juices from the plant and they can do it quite a lot of damage. But if you do look closely at these aphids, you might see that there are also some ants with them. And the ants are not eating them. What they're doing is basically farming them. They're managing them in a really similar way that humans manage cows. And so the reason that they're doing this is because the aphids produce a sugary sweet solution called honeydew, and the ants love to drink this. And so the ants protect and manage the aphids like cows, and it's in the same way that humans manage and protect cows, and they give them dairy. They give us dairy to drink. And so they're basically farming a different type of insect. And there are different species of aphid that they do this with, and there are even some other kinds of insect that they farm too. And sometimes they keep these in what are basically underground barns. These are completely enclosed chambers beneath the soil. And there the aphids are feeding on the juices in the roots of plant. And the ants are again managing them and taking this honeydew from them and protecting them in exchange. So there are lots of really cool things going on with insects and the farming systems that they've evolved. And it's even more similar to humans than you might think. So one way that humans farm that we often think is really unique to us is we create monocultures. So a monoculture is when you have a huge area of land with only one thing in it. So if you think of a really big field of wheat or oats, and nothing else living in there, that would be a monoculture. And humans often do that. And this can often be quite a bad thing because it can replace really diverse forests or other habitats. But it's not just us that do this. So ants will also create monocultures. And there are some rainforests that you can walk through and you come to an open clearing where it's just a huge monoculture of one type of plant. And that's because the ants are selectively growing this plant that they like. And they're killing all the other plants. They're nipping them in the bud. They're basically destroying them when they're seedlings and just breeding and cultivating this one type of plant. So they're more similar to us than you might think. So there are lots of different types of insect societies. The ants, like I mentioned, they like to build these huge underground networks, these huge underground cities. But termites often prefer to build upwards, and they create these nests that look more like skyscrapers or cathedrals. And they even have some very intelligent kind of architectural designs. And so what they have is they have a ventilation system in this nest, and it brings the air in and it circulates it around the colony, and it keeps them all nice and cool, even in the heat of the day when the sun is scorching down on them. And this is really useful for them because they live in the African savanna, so it can get very, very hot there. But because of this amazing design of their nest, they're all nice and safe and cool inside. So yeah, different types of insects have evolved different types of societies, different types of nests, and different types of architecture. So wasps usually build their houses out of paper, and they make paper in the same way that humans do. It's literally paper. So I've seen them on fence posts chewing away at the wood, and they're making it into a pulp, and then they're mixing that with their saliva. And very, very carefully, they build these beautiful rose-shaped papery homes that they live in. But there are some insects that even have different cultures in their architectural design. So just like if you go to a different country, you'll notice that different people have different cultures and traditions of building, different architectural styles, basically. And the same is true for insects. And we really don't appreciate this enough. So we often think that humans are really distinct and special because we have culture. But lots of other species have culture too, and insects are among them. So these are stingless bees, and often they build their homes in this beautiful spiral pattern. But different cultures build them in slightly different shapes. So some of them will build it like these stacked circles, and others will have these kind of amorphous, shapeless, blobby structures. And these are just cultural differences between their building styles. And this was a really recent discovery only in the past few years. So you can imagine what more amazing things are going on that we haven't discovered yet. Oh, this is one of my absolute favorite discoveries about social insects. So, of course, with all of these thousands of insects living in a single nest and cooperating towards a shared goal, they need efficient communication systems. They need to be able to talk to each other and coordinate their behavior. And so one way that they communicate is by dancing. So this was discovered in honeybees. I think we have a video that we might be able to show you.
Absolutely. Juliet, this is so cool. And thank you so much for the deep dive here. A big welcome into our huge new YouTube audience as well. We're going to play a little bit of a waggle dance video for you guys to take a look at. Like it's one of the best things in all of nature. It's so cool. You can explain a little bit about what happens in it if you'd like. We've got about a 45-second video.
Yeah. So I actually got to see this recently because there was a swarm of honeybees in the town center. And basically what they do is all of these honeybees are going out, they're looking for flowers, for the nectar and for the pollen. And then they fly back to their nest, and they need to tell the other bees in the nest where these flowers are so that they can go and find them too, and they can bring the nectar and pollen back to the hive. And so what they do is they have this special waggle dance, and the angle that they're waggling at corresponds to the direction that these flowers are and the direction that their nestmates need to fly in order to find them. And because all of this is done in the dark, the other bees they're not really watching them. They can't see them because it's so dark, but they're watching really, really closely, and they're feeling the dance with their antennae. You can see how close they are in that picture up there. And so because they're also in the dark, they have to use gravity. This is tricky to explain, but they can feel which way is up, even though they can't see anything. And so they use up to represent the position of the sun in the sky, and the angle relative to up is the angle relative to the sun that the flowers are. Isn't that amazing? It's so complicated.
It's pretty amazing. It's one of the coolest things in communication in the entire animal kingdom. And so we're back row to the video if you want to keep us going. But that was very, very cool. Thanks, Juliet.
No problem. Yeah, and also I think the duration of the waggle dance indicates how far they have to fly, with around 1 second of waggling corresponding to about 1 kilometer of flying. Super, super cool. So this is one example of the way that social insects can communicate with each other. Often they use pheromones instead. So pheromones are basically like smell. They're like chemicals that are released into the air. And humans can't really decipher these, but we can see the behavioral responses of the insects to these pheromones. So for example, we can see if it calms the bees down, and we can see if it causes them all to swarm or become aggressive. And there's something in these pheromones that's communicating something to all of these bees really efficiently, really quickly. So I'm sure there's a lot more communication systems like this to be discovered, to be translated in the insects. And we know more about honeybees because a lot of people keep honeybees and we see them a lot. But like I said, there are millions of species of insect in the world, so there's a lot of things going on. So another way that insect societies are pretty similar to human societies is that if you look closer, you'll notice they also have jobs. Not all of them do, but some of them have specialized, and they've basically divided up all the chores that need to be done in a colony. They've divided them up between the individual insects, and they each specialize to their different roles. So if you think of a human society, people are specialized to the different jobs that they have. So some people are soldiers, some people are doctors, some people are biologists, some people are postmen, postwomen. But ants have similar kinds of jobs, not exactly the same, but some of them are similar. So remember that these are a family group. So the one second from the right is the queen, and the one on the far right is the male. I hope I've got that the right way around. They do both have wings at different points in their life, so it's hard to tell sometimes. But all of these ones on the left of different sizes, they're all sisters, even though they look completely different. And the reason they look so different is because they're specialized to the different jobs that they do. And so these little ones will be carefully tending to the fungus that they're farming. And this big one here, she's a soldier, and so she has this really big, strong head with strong, powerful jaws, and she defends the colony from any predators that might want to attack it. And lots of different types of insect have soldiers like this, because you can imagine if you're a little insect, there are a lot of things in the world that want to try and eat you. So it's not just ants that have soldiers. This is one of the most common jobs in the insect world. So termites also have soldiers. They have, again, really big heads, strong jaws, and armored bodies. And there are some more obscure insects as well that have them. So you may remember earlier I talked about aphids and how they're sometimes defended by ants. Well, not all aphids have that relationship with ants. Some of them have evolved a way to defend themselves. And so they also have like a soldier caste, which is really heavily armored, has the big, strong arms, and they'll protect their group. And these insects on the bottom left are called thrips. Not many people have heard of thrips, even biologists, but they also have some very interesting social behaviors that are not well studied yet. And this includes this soldier caste, these specialized defensive thrips. There are some other jobs in insect societies that are quite similar to human jobs. So a lot of insect societies have queens, and some types of insect like ants, they only have queens, but others like termites, they have both queens and kings. And the main role of the queens in these colonies is to reproduce. And so she is constantly laying eggs, thousands and thousands a day. That's why her body is so big, to fit all of these eggs inside. And her role is basically to keep the colony alive, to keep producing more workers. So that's quite a different job description to the role of a human queen. But it gets even weirder than that. So there's a type of ant that lives in arid and semi-arid regions, which just means dry, hot, desert-like places. And they can't be sure that they'll have a reliable supply of food and water in their habitat. And so they've evolved a particular role within their colony that solves this problem of food and water scarcity. So these are called honeypot ants, and there's particular workers within the society who basically act as living food storage barrels. And the ants on the bottom go out into the environment, they collect all of the nectar and the honeydew, and they bring it back to the colony, and then they pass it mouth to mouth to these special honeypot ants, and they just accumulate all of it until their body completely swells up. That's its body that you're seeing here. This is what the ants on the bottom are what they look like normally, but then they completely fill their body up with all of this liquid, and they store it all year round, and they can't move. So their whole role in life is to sit completely still and just hold on to all of this liquid. And that means that they can feed the rest of the colony when food and water is absent from the environment, when there's nothing else to eat. Isn't that amazing? I think there's a video somewhere of David Attenborough eating one of these, actually.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite things in all of nature. I'm so glad when anyone talks about honeypotting ants because they're just insane, Juliet. So cool.
Yeah. I've actually never seen them in real life. I'd love to, though.
One day.
Yeah, one day. So these are almost as cool, possibly just as cool. So these are found high up in the trees of South America. You can find this different type of ant that lives in hollow twigs, in hollow branches in the trees. And they have this entrance into their nest. So the main problem that they have that they've had to solve is that there are lots of predators, there are competitor ants, there are all kinds of other insects that would want to get into their nest and eat them or steal their food. And so they've evolved a way to deal with this. And that's to have ants whose job it is to basically be a living door. And so they've adapted in this way that their head is the exact size and shape of their nest entrance. And their whole role in life is just to sit there like a security guard, blocking the nest entrance with their heads, and then letting their nestmates in and out and not letting anyone else in. Isn't that crazy? This is his head. Her head.
Ridiculous. Sorry. Totally ridiculous.
They're amazing. Yeah, I've never seen them either in real life. I would love to. It's top of the list. So there are lots and lots of cool things that ants are doing. I did warn you I'd talk a lot about ants. Another amazing thing that we discovered, well, not me personally, but that was discovered in the last few years, is that ants provide medical care. So we knew already that lots of insects produce antimicrobials, which basically is like a medicine that stops infections and injuries, kills bacteria, and it makes their nestmates healthy again when they're injured. So we knew that already, but what we didn't know is that these particular ants will amputate limbs if they're infected. And so this is what human doctors do in hospitals. If you have a really bad injury and your leg can't be saved, they might have to amputate it, and this saves your life. And it's only done when it's absolutely necessary, and the same thing is true for these ant colonies. So they know when that it's absolutely necessary to amputate the limbs, cut the legs off, basically. And they don't do it unless it is going to save the life of their nestmate. So some really, really smart behaviors. So earlier I introduced the thrips and the soldiers that they have, but it turns out that these have a second role. So these also act as medics, as doctors, basically, and they provide antimicrobials to their nestmates, and they nurse them back to health when they're ill and when they have an infection. And like I said before, people don't really know about thrips. There's not We haven't studied them very much, and there's more that we're learning all the time. This was another really recent discovery that they have this second role. So there's a lot more to find out there. So that was a bit of a run through of the insects that I've been considering in my PhD. And the approach that I took was to collect lots and lots of data from all the different scientific studies across the world and collate it and put it into a huge database, and then we can analyze it. And I spent a lot of time at my laptop making this database and then trying to figure out where all these different behaviors evolved and why they evolved. So why did some insects evolve to be social and others didn't? But the reality of spending so much time at the computer was this. So as you can see, it was a constant battle between me trying to do my work, final year of the PhD, and my cat trying to steal my attention. So this is a more realistic view of what my PhD was like most of the time.
You lost the battle, it looks like.
Yeah. Well, he's usually here in front of the screen, but he's not here right now because it's too hot. He's sprawled across the floor in the other room. But yeah, so that was what a lot of my PhD looked like. But I was also really lucky to do some field work and go and see some of the insects for myself. And one of the coolest places that I went was Papua New Guinea. So this is an island next to Australia, and it's just about as far as you can possibly get from the United Kingdom. So I flew all the way out there, and I was really excited because I love doing field work. I love being outside. And this was part of a really cool project to find as many ant species as possible and figure out what they all are. And then we can learn more about where the different types of ants are in the world and what they do. So I'm going to show you some of the things that we got up to while we were there. We were wading through swamps. We did lots of climbing trees, and we did lots of looking through the leaf litter, digging through the soil, pulling apart logs. And all of this was how we found as many different types of ants as possible. It was great fun. I loved it. So I'm going to give you some of the ant highlights that we found while we were there. So the first ones that I found were these polyrachis ants. These are called the spiny tree ants. And these often sit really high up on the leaves at about face height. And often ants, they don't really seem to notice when you're there. You're too big. You're living on another scale. They don't acknowledge you at all. But these were really observant. They really seemed to watch you as you walk past. And they were really, they'd always be moving their antennae and looking like they're very interested in what's going on. And that was quite a contrast to the second type of ant here, called Odontomachus, or trapjaw ants. So these were never high up on the leaves. I always saw them on the bottom of the forest floor, running across the soil or the sand. And they reminded me a lot of panthers, actually, because they were prowling around on the forest floor. And the reason they're called trapjaw ants, you might have guessed already, is because they have these huge jaws that slam shut when they want to catch their prey. I actually got bitten and stung by a load of these because I accidentally stood on their nest. So that was entirely my fault. I take the blame. So I still like them despite the pain I suffered. So the rarest ants that we found while we were there were these Mystrium vampire ants on the left. And the reason they're called vampire ants is because they have the amazing habit. The queen has the amazing habit of drinking the blood of her own babies. So the baby ants are larvae. They're like grubs. And she drinks the blood, the hemolymph, which is what blood is called in insects. She drinks that from her own larvae. And that's all she consumes. She doesn't go out and leave the colony and forage. And this doesn't kill the larvae. They're basically parasitized by their own mother. And they end up having all of these scars from where she's been biting them. So that's pretty crazy. They also have the record for the fastest animal movement in the world, because they snap their jaws shut as well. Very, very, very fast. The fastest animal movement. So they were really exciting to find. And probably the commonest type of ant that we found were these weaver ants. They were absolutely everywhere, climbing all over the trees and the tables and trying to steal our food all the time. These are called Ecophylla, weaver ants. And they're called weaver ants because they live in these beautiful silken hammocks up in the trees. But the ants, the adult ants themselves, don't produce silk. But their larvae do. And so what they do is they hold their larvae, and remember, these are their babies. They hold them like glue guns, and they squeeze them, and they use them to stick their hammock nests together. So ants have some really interesting ways of making use of their own children. So I'm not sure what time I'm on now. It always feels so fast when I'm talking about such fun things, but I'm going to leave you with this. So I often travel to London, and I recently saw this illustration of the London Underground train network. So London is a huge place. It has lots of underground trains that take you all over the city. And when I first saw this, I thought, this looks exactly like an ant colony. And so I've put these two illustrations side by side so you can see what I mean. And I think we often think we're really different to insects, but actually that's just a matter of scale. And if you take a step back so that humans look really small, or you take a step closer so that ants are much bigger, you'll realize that it's all just a matter of scale and we're more similar after all. So yeah, that's all from me. Thanks so much for listening.
And a great recap to wrap up. If you guys want to take a quick look at some of the things Juliet left on screen, we've got lots of time for Q&A. So to our amazing audience, including all sorts of people who just seem to have found this channel while it was on, welcome to Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. Glad you've been enjoying. Juliet, if you want to come out of screen share so you can see us again, have a bit of a conversation, by all means, take a sec to do that. For those of you on YouTube, we're going to start our Kahoot in a second. So 4 questions, test your understanding, have some fun for all our classrooms and people that are just joining alike. So if you're new to Kahoot, the faster you answer, the more points you get, and what you win is Juliet and I's everlasting respect. So I'm going to pull up that game pin again. Feel free to come on in with that. And then we're going to dive in with Q&A. There was so much there, and I've been loving all the enthusiastic comments over the last half hour from everyone on YouTube, but we're going to get in and get underway. And Juliet, if you want to give us hints along the way for these questions, you are more than welcome to guide us in the right direction. Let's see with question number 1. All right. 3, 2, 1. I'm glad you didn't melt too. It's a big win for today. What makes these awesome homes? Okay, let's see our picture. Ants, wasps, bees, or termites? We showed a few of these. We showed some really special insect societies throughout the course of this broadcast. Let's see what we've got for our answer. Everybody got termites, all our classes. Way to go. Okay, you guys are paying attention. Jubilant Squid has our lead over Awesome Hummingbird. Let's go to question 2. Who does the waggle dance? We showed some pictures. We showed some videos. Is it termites again, honeybees, sweat bees, or solitary wasps? And I hope everyone takes a chance to look up sweat bees more because they're super fun as well, and you should go study them. I've never seen so many bug-obsessed people in one chat in the history of Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. So, Juliet, you've struck a nerve today.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Well done. Everyone's nailing these so far. All our groups, classes, individuals, like whoever you may be, you're killing it. All right. This is a question we did not cover explicitly, but I like to throw it into bug programs. An entire colony of the world's smallest ant could fit inside the head of a single one of the biggest ant. Is this true or false? What do we think? All right. Let's get those answers in. Some of our human audience are saying that they do the waggle dance as well, which kudos to you. If you can alert your friends and family where food is by moving, a split. The answer is true for this. So if you pick true, well done. Let's see who did that. Awesome Hummingbird takes our lead going into our final one. All right. And then we're diving in with Q&A. So feel free to share in the chat anytime. All right. Juliet, you've been in a lot of rainforests, a lot of cool places. I know you probably didn't go and weigh all the ants, but what weighs more, all the ants in the rainforest or all the other wildlife? There was a picture in a thing as a boy. I want to say it's Journey to the Ants that I read when I was just a little kid. And like, it has this illustration of like, if you were to scale them up, the ants are like 4 times bigger than all the jaguars and toucans and other things combined, which is crazy.
It's unbelievable. Yeah. So many facts about ants are just completely unbelievable, but they're true.
That is my plug of the day. I put it in the chat as well. But Journey to the Ants by Bert Halldobler and E.O. Wilson was the book that really inspired me on insects as a kid. So can't recommend enough.
I got to interview Bert Halldobler recently. It was amazing. Yeah.
Wow. How cool is that, man? Oh, cool, guys. Well, our winner of our Kahoot is Awesome Hummingbird. Whoever you are, let us know who you are in the chat. And we are going to dive in with our Q&A with the note that it's a bug's world and we are just living in it. Carl, we couldn't agree more. That's why we're here together. Juliet, perhaps an easy one, perhaps a very hard one. Do you have a favorite insect of the day? Maybe this changes over time. Anything you want to share with us?
It definitely does change. I used to really, really love moths. So I used to do a lot of moth trapping, and I loved figuring out what all the different moths around me living in the garden were. Probably at the moment, I really like dragonflies because I really enjoy trying to photograph them, and it's really difficult because they're so fast. But it changes all the time. I mean, I love all of them.
It's a good problem to have. Very common biologist sentiment, by the way, is that it's hard to pick a favorite because animals totally rock. So get out, find your own. That's our plug of the day to you. A question we did not have last time, for some of our audience, and I'm expecting adults know that Papua New Guinea can be a bit of a challenging place to do fieldwork. Sometimes can be dangerous for people that are going there. Did you experience any challenges or dangers? Did you feel nervous while you were there in any way or no?
Yeah, there are lots of things. There is a lot of yeah, it is quite it's a very interesting place to go, and there are some things you have to be quite mindful of. So there are lots of different groups of people, and they often like to fight each other. And so there were quite a few fights that happened while I was there. And so there was one, there was this beautiful cultural show where I was learning about all the traditions of people who live there. But then a fight broke out and everyone was fighting in the street, and I had to run and I had to hide in this missionary home with people I'd never spoken to before. But yeah, it was an amazing trip.
By the way, so that's true too. Like everyone we've had on that's been to Papua New Guinea, which is not a common place for people to go, says the same thing. It's like the most incredible, beautiful cultural wildlife place ever. But that is not an uncommon story in our history. So I'm really glad we got that question. Thanks, guys. All right, question. So someone in our chat talked about bullet ants at the halfway point. And so they want to know, have you ever been bitten by anything poisonous, venomous, or venomous, specifically venomous, that really hurt you when it bit you, or have you avoided that so far?
Well, not very much. So I did get bitten and stung by those Odontomachus trapjaw ants when I was in Papua New Guinea. And that was pretty bad because there are a lot of them biting me and stinging me at the same time, and they got in my shoe and I had to take my shoe off and hop around. But it wasn't too bad. I haven't been bitten or stung by a bullet ant. I've never actually seen them myself. I hear they're really bad, so I'm quite happy to have avoided them. Despite catching a lot of bees, so I work mostly on bees now. I haven't been stung by a bee in years. So wow. I think it's really overhyped, the bee and wasp stinging thing.
As a boy, I remember going into my school playground and trying to convince all the other kids that bees wouldn't sting. So I picked one up and I walked and I was like, look, it's totally fine. And then stung me right in the hand as I was showing it. So that was a lesson to all the children in the playground of Toronto in 1997. But again, very uncommon for anyone who's nervous. You're really unlikely to end up in a situation where anything is stinging you if you take the regular, respect and precaution around animals that you should have. Juliet, is there a place that you would go that would be like your dream insect destination? Money is no object. You can go and do studies and just enjoy it. Where are you off to?
Oh, that's a really good question. So I think maybe Costa Rica. I did actually go to Costa Rica years and years ago, and I saw some really amazing things there. So I definitely love to go back. Now that I have my camera and I'm much better at finding and photographing insects, I would love to go back to Costa Rica.
I had the chance to go there last summer, and it's one of the most amazing places I've ever been. Like, I mean, you go out at night, and every 2 feet there's like 100 cool bugs. Like they're everywhere, and they're the neatest things you've ever seen. You wake up in the morning, and the lights on the deck, you got 100 kinds of moth that are the most. Each one of them, the best thing you've ever seen in your life. So I hope you get that chance and enjoy.
Thank you.
Before we wrap up, time flies and you're having fun in these broadcasts. Just a note from all our classes and folks that are joining us around the world today, is there a place or an app or a tool or anything that you'd recommend to people if they wanted to find out about the bugs that live near them so that they could go and search a little more effectively?
Yeah, so iNaturalist is a good app. I use it a lot for keeping track of all of the insects I've seen. So I have thousands and thousands of records of insects on there. You upload the photos, and it has an inbuilt recognition software that can suggest the identification of this insect. So if you have no idea what it is, it can give you some clues, and it does make mistakes. So you'd probably want to check online or check in a book, or with someone who knows better, and find out what it really is. But it's really good for identifying things and for keeping track of everything that you've seen. So yeah, iNaturalist is a good app.
We tell it in like every kind of broadcast that we do. It's the coolest thing ever. If you want to find out, a bald eagle or a cool giraffe-necked weevil was seen near you, you can find out and talk to the people that took the picture and find out where they saw it. It's like the greatest nerdy app of all time.
Yeah, that's true. You can also see other people's records. So you can look at it like a map, and it tells you all of the things that are nearby.
And there's nothing that people who like wildlife like more than random strangers reaching out to them to be like, hey, where did you see that cool bug? And they'll be like, oh, absolutely. This happens all the time for me personally and with the biologists and people we bring on. So iNaturalist.org, can't recommend enough. Very, very fun. Juliet, this has been a hoot. Thank you so much for spending your time, sharing your passion, expertise, all of it. Is there any final message about insects, the world of bugs, before we say goodbye that you want to leave us with?
I don't think so, except that you'd be amazed at how many different types of things you can have in your garden. So at the moment, I'm trying to identify and record as many bees as possible in my own garden, and I've got more than 21. So I just found the 21st species of bee in my garden yesterday. So you'd be amazed at what you can find on your doorstep. Yeah.
Like as a 10-year-old, I remember going to my backyard and with a magnifying glass, and especially really, really tiny things, I found 72 species in like 4 hours of like little tiny things, including the plants, birds flying by. And like that really set the stage for me to just be excited about this my whole life. So get outside. It's a beautiful day here in Newfoundland where I am. So hopefully it's nice where you are. And if it's 32 degrees, you can wait till evening and it's a little cooler. But just get out there and enjoy it. Juliet, thank you so much for joining us twice this year. Such a thrill to have you back. And I hope you see you in Costa Rica next time. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and bye for now.